All right, everybody, let's get training going for December. I know you are all ready for that. I seem to have started on the wrong slide, so just so we are all on the same page. This is your training for December 2023 STAAR EOC. We are also doing your security and confidentiality training for the year. So at the completion of this training, once you have read your material, and have submitted your training verification form and signed your oath, you're all ready to go. And that oath takes care of your security and confidentiality training for a year. We'll continue to have procedural training, but it will cover that part of the oath. All right, let's move forward. As y'all know, the content is what helps us prepare to be on the same page for our December testing, but there are forms that I'm going to include in here that may have a little bit of change. I already know of one change that's coming, and that's going to be that we're not going to submit paper attendance. And I made that decision last night, and I don't think I've corrected the slide yet. So just bear with me on that. I'll just go ahead and let you know. But content should never be substituted for what we receive on test day. This is to prepare us, but if there's a change that comes, I try to communicate it, and also just follow your checklist, follow all the things that you need to know for the day, and we will all be on the same page when it comes to that. All right, let's see, here we go, sorry. All right, administrator manual is available. I've shared that with y'all in emails. The link is here as well. Remember, training never takes the place of reading the manual. Moving on to test security and confidentiality, this is a big portion of what we're going over today. I know that the majority of you, this is old hat, but we do have people new to our campus. And so this will help. Remember, this takes care of that part of the training that is associated with the oath that we use for an entire school year. Here are some highlights that are in here on the training itself. I included the page numbers of what it is going over and the importance of those things. I want you to see right here, I linked a accommodations thing off our big manual. And on here, this is just the more detail that will come up. It looks like it's a little slow today. But remember that accommodations are set in place by our ARG committee, our LPAC, sometimes RTI, in 504. But an accommodation cannot be used unless it is routinely and independently and effectively proven to work for a student. And it has to be documented by those entities, because that's how we get them on a test. If it says that we have a supplemental aid and the student gets one, then by golly, somebody has to provide a supplemental aid, or we won't be in compliance, or they have to do an amendment to their 504 or whatever, ARD or LPAC. They have to go back and revisit that student's individual accommodations because we can't put something in place that doesn't exist. So just keep in mind, there's locally approved designated support. That's where a majority of our things come from because the entities that preside over them. And then there's details on each of them on this website here. I just wanted you to be able to go in depth if you needed to have some access to those things. All right, moving on. I know you can see those page numbers. All right, let's test security. What does it really mean? It means that we're ensuring that a fair and equal testing opportunity is being established for all students. It preserves the integrity of the test content to ensure that that the results are valid and they're meaningful, and we strict adherence to instructions and procedures contained in test administration manuals and resources, and it involves accounting for all secure material before, during, and after each test. Here are the different education codes and administrative codes that are cited that cover test security and confidentiality. And just an example, 2 of those are listed here. This education code it establishes procedures for the administration of these tests. And this one talks about our required procedures and training to ensure the validity, reliability, and security of assessments. Our manuals, as we talked about before, they are available. You can use that table in the previous part to help guide you through your manual. The hard copies are coming soon, but you all have availability for the online version. Remember, test security involves accounting for all secure materials before, during, and after each administration, and here's all the things that includes. Our materials control form is really what does this for us once the testing is in place. But prior to that, it's a secure office. There's only 3 keys. Everybody doesn't just have access to this. Most places have a closet. Well, our office and closet is all one and the same for those secure materials. Some of these things are specific just to me, like the inventory part of it. But as people that give a test, your part is knowing where all the documents are. And for us, that is the test ticket and all the things that go along with it in your bucket. When we create the environment, that means that we're ensuring that all of the student electronic devices are turned in. We read the policy. We don't allow anything in the room that can hinder or help on a subject-specific test. There's some examples of things that have to be covered or removed at the bottom, but it's not limited to that. You just have to be mindful of what's going on in the space. Irregularities do occur, and they can happen before, during, or after testing. There's serious and procedural errors. Serious irregularities, this is what constitutes a serious irregularity. It's a severe violation of test security or confidentiality. It has to be investigated by the district testing coordinator. It must be reported to TEA as soon as the district coordinator is made aware of the situation, and it can result in the individuals responsible being referred to the TEA Educator Certification and Standards Division for consideration of disciplinary action. Here's some things that they're considered serious testing violations. And it directly involves a test and the answers, whether it's assisting students, tampering with things, viewing content when you're not authorized to do so, duplicating it, scoring it, talking about it, discussing or disclosing secure test content or student responses. We shouldn't know those things. Active monitoring doesn't mean I'm so active in what a student is doing, I can see the test questions. Active monitoring ensures that the practices going on in that room don't hinder or help a kid other than create the environment for them to flourish and succeed. Conduct is also considered serious. Here's some more things. Again, responding to test questions, fraudulently exempting a kid from participating, encouraging kids or someone to engage in conduct of this nature, failing to report something, failing to implement procedures to prevent cheating, or even failing to implement sufficient procedures to prevent alteration of test documents. These all fall into the serious category. Procedural errors are a little less severe. They're more common, typically result in the result of monitoring deviations in testing procedures. Routine training is the best way to avoid these. And we do have procedural training for every test. We do security and confidentiality that is hinged to the oath, that is also kind of tied to your certification. It is tied to your certification. But every testing, we have a procedural training. And y'all wonder why some of the things make our checklist. Take a look at all these procedural regularities. It's a reason. Between this and the code and the education codes, these are the reason that the checklist comes to be. It helps make it easier to digest and ensure that we're doing the right thing. So here are some procedural irregularities that include these types of errors: accommodation, accounting, eligibility, monitoring, training. Here's some monitoring errors. You're not monitoring students when they're on a break or a room's left unmonitored. Students aren't given the right amount of time. You don't do the seating chart. I know I'm jumping around here. You don't provide the appropriate ancillary materials. Understand dictionaries, calculators, reference materials are all embedded on a test, but we will do our best to provide a couple of dictionaries, 1 or 2, for English 1 and English 2 STAAR exams, just in case the kid needs the paper one, but everything else is now embedded on the test, so that really doesn't come into play here. Or didn't properly prepare the testing environment. Some more monitoring errors include you're not ensuring students are working independently, and didn't prevent students from having cell phones, using cell phones. Remember, that's one of the first things we do when we walk in the room with kids. Accommodation errors can fall under this, and training errors fall here. Accommodation error, we don't provide the right accommodation, or we provide one that wasn't approved. Make sure we are in compliance with the law and in the education code and what is right for the student. Whatever is in their accommodations is embedded on that accommodation page. Read it, know what it is. Training errors, if I put somebody to take care of something in a room that wasn't properly trained, or even if someone just runs in your room and says, I'm going to stand here while you go to the restroom. If they don't have an oath, then we have an error. And this is why the whole staff goes through security and confidentiality training. We want to make sure that we're covered at all times. Some eligibility errors, this is still under the procedural errors, include a student was administered the wrong test. Basically, it says wrong grade level, wrong test. If you haven't completed the course, you are not supposed to take the test. So be diligent to know, you know, if a student is, once a student starts the test, they have to take the test. But we've got to make sure we can't just give somebody a U.S. history test that hasn't had the U.S. history course. An eligible student was not administered the test. Anyone that's enrolled in those must have the opportunity to test. Okay. There's more of those things. We have to account for every tester. Here's some accounting errors. Lost or misplaced tickets. Secure online assessments were left open and visible. Secure test materials were left unattended. The student was issued test materials that belonged to another student. This is why we tell them all to check their, we tell them all to check their names and birthdays on those test tickets. Test results or test performance was improperly shared. Students using electronic devices to capture or transmit secure content. Students will not have access to electronic devices before they're dismissed from the test site or all testing has concluded. It's a serious violation if a student photographs, duplicates, or transmits secure test content or disseminates the information using an electronic device. The district may be asked to submit an online incident report, and the student's results may be invalidated. You have to contact me immediately. The moment, this is why, the moment smartwatch, phone, anything goes off in the room that was not in your possession, then we may have a problem and we have to investigate. So we consider it a problem, we investigate until we realize there isn't one, and then there will be disciplinary action for the student. All right, remember to read our cell phone policy and electronic device policy. It's the first thing on your checklist when the students come in. You greet them, you figure out who they are, tell them where to sit, and have them, give them Post-its for whatever they have. It's not limited to these things, but any electronic device. I don't care if they have 4 cell phones. And yes, there is a chance that they'll give you one and they still have another one. Look for smartwatches. We have to be on our guard and do all the things that we can to ensure that things are valid and secure in those environments. All right. So this code states that any violation of test security or confidentiality integrity may result in TEA taking these steps. It can invalidate a student's test. They can referring the employee to SBEC for potential sanctions, and that could be a reprimand. It could result in the cancellation of education certificate. It could also have, down here in this administrative code, an educator who's found guilty of intentionally manipulating results or violating security of confidential integrity of a state assessment may not receive a sanction of less than 1 year suspension. It could be worse. And then down here, there's a criminal penalty. Did y'all see that? Secure assessment instruments. A person commits an offense if the person is intentionally disclosing the contents of any portion of the secure instrument. It can be a misdemeanor. That goes on a record. Things that involve cheating. Districts are required to actively monitor to ensure students are following testing procedures. Some cases, a student attempts to cheat. All students are required to follow test procedures. So students taking STAAR, they have to sign the oath. It's electronic statement. It's an electronic honor statement. And districts are required to have procedures in place to prevent cell phones. So here's the deal. We're all expected to follow the guidelines. And even right here, it says, even if the student doesn't sign it, even if they don't click the button to say, I do the honor statement, it's still in place. It's still in place. If a student's cheating, there's an investigation, and if they're found to have cheated, then we O-code them. It does not count. A procedural testing irregularity form should be submitted only if the district coordinator determines there's a failure on the part of the adult personnel. So there's things in place, and we have to follow it up with documentation. A kid can get O-coded. All right, so when you're making the report, our form is there. Everybody, if it's an irregularity, when in doubt, you fill it out. No problem, okay? And then it says, and seek assistance from campus principal as needed. No, seek assistance from me. We had to adapt this training from our district training, so that should have said seek assistance from your testing coordinator. So basically it says what happened, where and when it occurred, who was involved, and how or why the incident occurred. You create the timeline, you write the important facts in there, and then there's this little bullet point that says consider what you do to ensure that the incident is not likely to occur. That may or may not be possible, and we understand that, but if it is a possible thing that we could prevent in a different way, then think about that and put those steps in place. Write it out on your form. You're going to contact me, let me know what's going on. I'll know what's coming, and I'll know whether I have to contact our DTC. All right, let's get into December. All right, so here's the dates. On Tuesday, December 5th, that is 3 weeks from today. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 3 weeks from today, we're doing biology and U.S. history. We're going to use the F5 area, L108 through 110, and the library. That should take care of those needs, so we won't have to displace classrooms. On Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to do English 1 and English 2. We will be displacing some classes those days. And then Friday, we're going to try to get everything down here, L108 through 110, the library, and F5. And then we will continue to do testing after that. My window actually closes on the 15th. So I'll be making up children all throughout the next week, and probably have Miss Help in here some. And maybe Felisa, maybe interchanging them. It just depends on what our needs are. But the majority of you, your staffing will involve the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. All rooms will be checked Monday, December 5th. but I'm just going to do the best I can. If there's something obvious, cover it up. I'm going to post your assignments no later than noon, Wednesday, November 29th. That's the Wednesday we get back from our break. Everything should be solidified by then. Have a pending LPAC. Then it's at the end of this week. We still have some art amendments taking place. So I want to make sure that I don't schedule students or schedule teachers when it's more than we need. You got to pick up your testing materials between 7:45 and 8:15. Once you leave the testing office, make sure you go to your assigned place, work through your checklist, ensure that testing in your room aligns with the procedures laid out in your manual and previous trainings. Okay, I'm hoping to staff every room with 2 people for the first 2 hours. After that, you can rotate off to make sure the room's covered and your needs are met. If you both want to stay in there the whole time, that's great. If not, great. Possible duties include test administrator, restroom monitor. I may need an assist, but most likely I'm going to be the assist wherever we are. And if I have 2 in each room, I shouldn't have to have a hall assist. So we'll just see what's going on. Tara will be in the office with me. And hopefully Estella will be off of the boot by then, but I don't know how much we'll be running around with her. All right, testing bins and daily procedures. Here's the things that should be in the testing bin. Every part of this has a purpose. So most often it maintains the security and confidentiality as well as being in compliance with state guidelines. So make sure, just consider it secure. I know pencils don't seem all that secure, but just consider it secure and make sure that all content comes back. All right, for us, electronic devices, if you're using one as, you shouldn't have to use one as a timer, but let me talk about this for a second, because this is in your manual, and I can't remember if this is on a future slide, but it has to be talked about. So we are documenting on the start-stop sheet. I am going to talk about this in a minute, but I'm going ahead now, I guess. Start-stop sheet, you're gonna write the overall room time of when everybody started, right? But if somebody's start time is different, that goes on the start-stop sheet. We need to be able to account for if a kid has to be removed from the situation or if they go to lunch or anything like that. We've got to account for that time on the start-stop sheet. It's our best place to do that, because the new part in our manual says that students can't spend more than 7 hours on their test. Now, if you think about it, our kids are in school from 8:30 to 4. We're not going to start at 8:30. You've got to get the kids in there. 8:30 to 4 is 7.5 hours. So even if a kid started the test at 9 and went until 4, that would give them 7 full hours. I'm hoping we start well before 9. And if a kid is testing that whole time, they're also going to get lunch. So we're going to be fine. But the start-stop sheet's our way of doing the accounting on that. Student devices, remember, follow instructions on checklist. You're going to request all those devices as they arrive. They've got to turn them off and label them. And then you read the district electronic use policy when it says so on the checklist. Active monitoring, remember, it ensures that the confidentiality and security is provided. Actively engage in observing students' behavior at all times. You're moving around testing so students' actions can be observed, and you're not engaged in any activities. You've got to know what's going on in their room and manage that. And this is why. All right, accommodations. The only kids that might be in a small group, and that would be in a room of, I'm going to say it'll be in a room of less than 20. If it says small group, we obviously have to do it that way, but I do that also if they have text-to-speech. Remember, if you have a student that says text-to-speech, they can be mixed with everybody. I just try to keep that separate. And if it says text-to-speech, students get headphones. Content and language supports do not require headphones. Spelling assistance does not require headphones. Those are just embedded in the test. Text-to-speech requires headphones. All right. All right, lunch. Students can stop testing to take a lunch. So here's how this will work. At 1 o'clock, I will ask the rooms that are still testing, make sure to ask kids if they think they won't finish on time to eat lunch, if they would like us to order them a lunch. And we'll go from there. But whenever a student stops for lunch, we will notate that time on the start-stop log. All right, this part, taking attendance, I'd already talked about this earlier. We're not going to do this part right here, and I would go in here and edit it out, but I will do that before it comes to you. So attendance, just take it immediately as they come in. In our small group of people giving this test in December, it should not be hard to let that be something that somebody's doing. You have a roster, mark it on your roster, mark it online. And then at 10 o'clock, go back and make sure it's correct. And then one of us is going to come by and pick up the materials of the absent student. All right. The roster, you're going to fill in all requested information and complete the seating chart to depict your testing room. The start-stop sheet, we have talked about this, but again, it's how we track the amount of time a student is being tested. I notate on there, the state system doesn't track the way, oh, that is really bad, the way online PSAT and SAT do. Major typo, sorry, there we are, human. Because remember on those in October, it individually had the timers of the students in their test. That would be amazing if we went to that on ours, but it could also cause some anxiety. So the accommodations page, remember that you're following what's listed, and the checklist helps us keep operating on the same page. Just follow it to the letter. All right, accessing the test. All right, students come with their Chromebook charged and ready in the utopian society world. All is good, rainbows, puppies, unicorns, all the things. But we do have some backups if they're needed. And we'll, since you have to start out with 2 testing administering in the room, you can send one person to us to get Chromebooks. We're going to try to make sure students are updating in SFC when we come back. And then remember, calculators, decimals, and dictionaries are all embedded. As students come in and go to their seat, have them restart their computers, and the app we use is called Secure Testing Browser. They don't sign in. Remember, they don't sign in. Now, each day you'll be provided the session ID to write on the board. In December, I'm pretty confident, yeah, I know we do this, I will produce label sheets for your room with the session code on there. You cannot give them that until you are ready to start. If everybody in the room is doing the same test, when you're ready for them to sign in, as it's indicated on your checklist, do not write it until it says to on your checklist. You can put it on the board. But they will be specific to test each day. They won't carry over and they won't be duplicated. All right. That is the end of our training. I cannot believe it. It's like fast forward crazy. Remember, training never takes the place of reading your contents, of your manuals, your slides, all of it. It's as much of an overview as I can give you. If you have any questions about specific things, please, 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 please ask. I will also try to have some kind of snacks for you each day. Not anything crazy, but we will be in the Christmas season by then. So I just want to be able to say thank you. I know we don't really have an option, but I appreciate all that you do and that you are in this with me. And the team that we have at Mesquite, I tell you, it is unmatched. Been in some trainings recently and hear things going on at other schools, and it makes me even more grateful for where I am. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your help. If you need me, ask. If you need anything from me, text, email, come by, whatever you need. All right, make sure to complete your training. You have to fill in your verification form and sign your oath. Y'all have a great day.